Everybody, welcome to our latest edition of Getting to Know You. This one's tying in with National Volunteers Week. So on the back of that, we're going to get to know Johnny, who I'll introduce. He'll introduce himself in a second. Johnny's here to talk about his new role. It's due to start imminently, and his journey from being a service user, peer mentor, volunteer, and now moving into a brand new and exciting paid role. Just to introduce myself, my name is Mark Spedding. I'm District Manager for Inspire in Burnley. Over to you, John.
Yeah, thanks. I'm John. I'm a volunteer service user representative for East Lancashire.
And I'm Jonny, recently appointed to the post of Homeless Recovery Coordinator based at Burnley Inspire.
Great stuff, thanks Johnny. You beat me to it because I didn't explain what the role actually was. So yeah, it's a brand new role. It's quite an exciting role. It's a Homeless Recovery Coordinator based in Burnley primarily, but we'll be doing some work across East Lancs. Working closely with Gateway and our other accommodation providers, and also the Comfort Zone, which we'll talk a little bit about later on. So firstly, congratulations Johnny on the new role.
Thank you very much, Mark.
So appreciate you're not yet in post, but can you tell us a little bit about the role and how you kind of see it rolling out?
Well, as you mentioned, it will involve working with other agencies in a multidisciplinary team, notably Gateway, where I worked for 18 months previously. And I, similar to the role that I did at Gateway as the homelessness navigator for Burnley, Pendle and Rossendale, the multidisciplinary team is likely to be quite broad. So it will involve the council, probably the local police, probation, other community support groups, church groups, and ultimately estate agents, perhaps recovery houses, those sorts of teams. So yeah, it'll be a broad range of other agencies involved.
Cool. So what are you most looking forward to?
If I'm completely honest, it'll be getting back out there. It's been a little bit tricky over the last 18 months, whatever, as it has for so many people.
Yeah.
And I suppose ultimately, I'd like to be able to make a difference and to be successful in the new role.
I'm sure you will, absolutely. And what are your aspirations for the role?
Well, ideally, it'll be working with potential service users who are ready to engage and supporting them into service and beyond with the help of other agencies, of course. And those that are perhaps more reluctant, not quite ready to engage, for me, it would be really important or vital to maintain a working relationship with them so that I'm with them, if you like, at a point when they might then decide that now's the time for them to engage with services. So, you know, not really leaving anybody behind is a very important part of the job.
Absolutely. Wait until people are ready and then grab that opportunity.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So a little bit about Johnny, the person. So what are your likes and dislikes, Johnny?
The first one is one that I like and loathe in equal measure, and that is social media. It has its hugely positive side, but it's also a platform for the most horrendous forms of personal abuse and attack. So when used correctly, it's absolutely wonderful. But I love walking. I walk pretty well every day. I enjoy being outdoors very much. I enjoy positive company now. My company in the past hasn't always been particularly positive. And the connections that I had already that I'd neglected, and the new connections that I have, having been in service now since February 2020, those are desperately important to me and continue to strengthen my recovery on a daily basis. Dislikes, I dislike bullying of any description, exploitation of people for whatever reason, people who are vulnerable. Yes, that's one of my biggest dislikes, I think, is people being taken advantage of, you know, misunderstood, judged. And my other major dislike is seafood, unfortunately. I have quite a nasty allergy to it.
We'll bear that in mind when you join us at Burnley.
Yeah, no prawn sandwiches, please.
No prawns, no tuna.
No.
No worries. So what do you like to do to relax, Johnny?
Over the last sort of 18 months, I've become a great fan of meditation and mindfulness. In the past, I'd always been a little bit suspicious of them, thinking that, you know, it's the sort of thing that people do at Woodstock, sitting cross-legged in a field. But they've become an integral part of my daily life. On a more sort of mundane sort of plane, I enjoy a really good long hot bath, which I find very relaxing.
Would you consider doing some mindfulness sessions for the team, or is it just for you personally?
I would, well, yeah, I'd relish the opportunity to get some sort of guidance as to how to lead mindfulness sessions. The one that was offered on a Friday, Sharon and Dennis used to do that. I'm not sure if that's still going, but that was really enjoyable. And the links that I continue to get in my work within the Thrive groups, they're wonderful. The daily calm type meditations, and I use my walks for the largest part of my mindfulness, because there's so much to see and appreciate when you're walking, but in my day-to-day life as well.
Which kind of ties into the next question. It's the one that everybody's asking at the moment, is what would you like to do when COVID is over, if we ever get to that point?
Yes, good question. I think the most important thing for me would be to see both my sons again. My youngest son lives in London. I haven't seen him for well over a year. My eldest son works in the NHS up here in the Northwest, but I've only seen him once, I think, in 12 months. So that's a hugely important sort of aspiration, if you like, that I have. And I'd also like to go on a very good walking holiday somewhere in the sun.
Sounds good to me. Okay, thanks, Johnny.
You're welcome.
Over to you, John.
Yeah, thanks. So these next questions I'm going to ask are just more about giving us an insight and what it was like for you previously as a service user. So the first question I've got is, what was your experience like? Well,
I can't praise the people that have helped me throughout the journey enough. It was, you know, it was phenomenal, to be honest. At times it was challenging because I needed to be challenged. It was educational, and I felt completely supported throughout the entire process. So, you know, the initial nerves of coming into service for the first time, and, you know, feeling a little bit, you know, I was very down on myself at the time. But yeah, I really can't fault the support, advice, guidance, learning that I've experienced. It's been absolutely brilliant.
That sort of echoes what you said before about the being ready to engage. It's fulfilling in it once you are ready to engage.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're in two minds, you know, if I'd been in two minds about it, the process, it just wouldn't have worked. But I was so ready to sort things out that everything that was offered to me steered me in the right direction and continues to.
Yeah. So what was your initial experience with the services when you first entered treatment?
Very, very welcoming and warm, and of course empathic as well. And I have, my memory of my early couple of appointments is not as clear as I'd like it to be, because they were obviously the most important, because I'd done a sort of a home detox. My head was absolutely everywhere. Yeah, I sadly don't remember enough about those early meetings because I was in a bit of a mess. But once I'd been assessed and started on the foundations, then the 5 ways to well-being, then Live and Thrive, it's just been a fantastic journey since then.
Oh. So what challenges did you feel like you had to face in order to get to where you are now?
I suppose initially the biggest one was that I attended one Live and Thrive meeting, as it was then, in person, in, you know, at base, and then we were locked down basically, and so everything since then has been on Zoom, and that I found very odd and quite difficult. Not from the technical point of view, but from the I love people basically. I'm absolutely, you know, and I found it very hard to sort of talk and be open with people, you know, 6, 7, 8 people who are all, you know, as far as you can see, sitting in a rectangle on screen. And that I found very challenging to start with, but then there came the acceptance that if it was either that or nothing, and, you know, potentially relapsing or whatever. So yeah, that was challenging, but at the same time, lockdown, I think, in a way, has been a bit of a godsend.
Yeah, the perseverance is really a testament to your strength, really, and that pulling the positives out of the negatives, like the Zoom, like we can still be connected to other people regardless of the outside situations. That's really tough. How did you overcome these, would you say, when you were faced with them?
I think as I gradually sort of began to enjoy my sobriety and see things very differently, see myself very differently, I accepted basically that this is the only way at that time that I was going to be able to, you know, make a worthwhile recovery, an enduring recovery possible. And it was really just about accepting what was available and what wasn't. And, you know, the other choice would have been absolutely disastrous for me. I don't believe that I'd still be alive today if I hadn't chosen or accepted the situation as it was.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Acceptance is like it is the foundation. If we don't accept it, we can't build on it, can we?
No.
So just a few questions now about you as a peer mentor, really. What actually motivated you to volunteer with Inspire?
Mainly, I thought about this, and I think it was the fact that I felt so good after doing Thrive, that I wanted to somehow be part of helping other people to find that feeling of feeling good. And it was just, overwhelming how far I traveled in the 12 weeks on Live and Thrive, or slightly longer because I didn't want to leave. And yes, that was the biggest motivation, was to give something back based on the fact that I am proof that it works, and that in my view, it's never too late, really. I don't think. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now, as you can probably tell from my hair. No, that was essentially it. It was because the experience for me was so good and effective that I wanted other people, or to be part of other people's enjoyment of that as well.
Yeah, that's going to make you really relatable as well. People will be able to really relate to you that are in that situation, because it's lived, isn't it?
Yes, so and lived for quite a long time.
Don't worry about it. I'm going bald. I'm on 30. You've still got a full head of hair.
Yeah.
What was your experience of the volunteer recruitment process?
To be offered the opportunity to actually practically give back, having done all the theoretical, the education side with Mo, the training that we underwent, to be given that opportunity was absolutely fantastic. I might as well have been, I don't know, been given a job in the city with a company Porsche or something. I was absolutely delighted to be given the chance to put that learning into practice, and to help other people, support other people.
Yeah, it comes off you in waves. You can see how appreciative you are. Once recruited, what training were you offered?
Do you mean the sort of the actual peer mentor training itself, or additional training?
Around peer mentor, but any training really? What training did you sort of undergo?
The course was quite intense, and at times it was quite challenging, because I think that my acceptance on the peer mentoring course coincided with the latter end of my time in Thrive. So I was on Zoom Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with a bit of homework to do at the weekend for the peer mentor training. So it was challenging, but at the same time, being busy in a positive way was really, really helpful and very enjoyable. So we covered a number of different topics during the training. And then after the training, we did the delivery excellence course. And then that enabled us as volunteers to move on to delivering peer-led training to other service users, running the alcohol welcome sessions to new referrals. So it opened up a whole load of other experiences. And since then, I've worked supporting and learning from the medical team at the Burnley office, which gave me another valuable insight into perhaps a slightly more clinical aspects of the role that Inspire fulfills, but at the same time a very important part of understanding how everything fits together.
So your knowledge of the what's the word I'm looking for? Like what's the word I'm looking for? Like the service is quite well rounded, isn't it?
Yes, it's getting there for sure. And from my previous experience working with the homeless in Burnley, it just sort of added to that. Yes, so well-rounded is a good way of describing it.
So what support did you get?
During that, it was throughout the training. Obviously, the support from Mo was outstanding. He couldn't do enough to ensure that the training was not only effective, but that he made it not easier for us, because that sounds like he was giving us all the answers or coaching us. But he went the extra mile to make sure that we got the most out of the course. Always ready to answer questions, His feedback to us was always really prompt and incredibly useful. So yeah, I felt massively supported throughout that. And another important aspect, once we'd the group of, I think it was 6 of us to start with, finished the training, when we started to work together as a small team to prepare training in things like stress management and managing conflict, that sort of thing, for service users, being part of an incredibly like-minded but small, close-knit team was amazing. It was really good. We practiced delivering the training on each other in rehearsal sessions, which is, you know, a wonderful sort of advantage before going out and doing it live. So yeah, the support from my peers, other staff within the building who I haven't seen too often, obviously, because of lockdown, but always made to feel welcome in the building. Just, you know, the all-round level of support and welcome has been incredible.
Massive like team experience, really.
Yeah, extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
brilliant.
everybody it brings, everyone's so different, you know. It's, you know, different experiences, different backgrounds. It's a fascinating insight in, you know, to the true sort of diversity of the world.
Yeah, like it. So what was your experience as a volunteer once it began?
That was hugely rewarding. I mean, initially I won't deny it was a little bit nerve-wracking, because it's that sort of vague feeling of being being an imposter, you know, asking myself, who am I, you know, to stand up here and all this sort of stuff. But, you know, with the feedback from people and the fact that it seemed to be being well received, the feedback from within the group of peer mentors supporting one another, my confidence grew pretty quickly, I think. And the supervision, if you like, that we got from Mo was excellent, because Mo would sit in a sort of dark corner in the background on Zoom, and he'd just observe and feed back to us as well. So that process of learning was really, really efficient and very, very welcome.
Do you feel like the imposter came from a place of like disbelief of that you're actually shedding your old image?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good question. Yeah, it's like, you know, who am I to be standing up here? You know, I could barely string a sentence together 12 months ago, that sort of thing. So yes, it felt quite unnatural.
It's amazing that someone can turn their life around that fast once they do engage and they are willing.
It just shows that if people are committed and they get the same enormous commitment back from the people supporting them, that anything is achievable. I
think it's even more amazing to do it during the last 12 months and where we've worked and where we've all lived, and the fact that you've done it during that as well is just another notch for me, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as I said, in a very odd way, lockdown was a sort of blessing, because I was faced with the stark choices of either knuckling down and doing everything I could to recover and to start the journey on recovery. The other choice was, you know, 3 months to live if I'd carried on the way I had. So yeah, and I am so pleased I made the choice that I did in the end.
So what would you say worked well for you then throughout this process?
The fact that human contact, again, although in a slightly odd way, that human contact was still there, and the people that I was trained by, the people whose lived experience resonated with me. The peers on the Thrive group, for example, every single group, every session, I learned something, either about myself, about other people. It broadened my mind, and in a strange way, I think the distance that a computer screen puts between you and the other people in the group enabled people to maybe say things that they might not have said in a room. It was a very bizarre effect, but quite noticeable. And now I co-facilitate Thrive with Sharon for the Burnley group, and I still find the same thing at the end of each session. You know, something has sunk in, something has resonated. So the platform, and the other thing that I have to say is that Inspire was so quick to get online, to get the service out there. That really impressed me at the time, because I thought, oh my God, there's going to be a vacuum when we were all locked down. And I felt slightly, well, I felt very anxious as to how I was going to continue my recovery without input from anybody else. It would have been impossible.
So Zoom really has added an element of safety, hasn't it, within people's recovery, that it is still achievable despite the harness of it.
Definitely, because, you know, in spite of the thing I said about the sort of physical distance and separation, I couldn't hide on Zoom. The only way to hide is to turn your camera off, and that immediately makes people think, he's switched off, or he's having a quick drink or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's impossible to hide on Zoom. And I think that encouraged engagement. Some people who weren't ready perhaps dropped out and might come back at a later date. But yeah, it worked well.
Really interesting to hear, Johnny, really reassuring. And you know, we've done things that we weren't comfortable with at the start, but a lot of people have thrived, to use Live and Thrive.
Yeah, and I have the absolute delight of as a co-facilitator now, is of seeing that progress from a slightly more objective viewpoint. 2 people graduated this week from the Thrive group in Burnley, and there were 2 people whose journey I have been with more or less since the very first day they came into Thrive. And that is just, you know, it's quite hard to put in words.
So just one final question from me then. What could have been better in this whole process or this whole journey?
I really dislike that question. What can we do to improve? From my point of view, as somebody who is emotionally, physically on their knees at the back end of 2019, I couldn't have asked for anything better. And I know that's a cop-out, but no, I really couldn't have asked for anything better at all.
Definitely, it's just encapsulating your journey for you, isn't it? And your gratitude. Yeah. And for you, this is like, it is dreams come true, doesn't it, really, when you get clean? So you've done amazing. I'm going to pass it back to Mark, but thanks a lot for that insight.
Thank you, John. Cheers.
Thanks, John. There are a few more questions, but you've already probably covered a lot of this stuff, Johnny. So thank you for sharing your story. One thing I would ask, what would be your message to people who are a little bit apprehensive, maybe thinking about walking through the door at Inspire, thinking about coming into services? I hate that word, services, but what would your message be to somebody who's out there is maybe thinking, should I go, should I not?
With hindsight, it's perhaps slightly easier for me to say that, but I think the question people need to ask themselves is, am I ready to surrender? Basically, it's that the acceptance, the challenge that they're facing, whether it be alcohol, drugs, you know, whatever their addiction, is that they have as I had, lost control, and they need to surrender to the fact that they have no ability at that time to control their lives and their addictions. And I felt very sort of reassured and comfortable with the fact that I was surrendering to people, you know, either with lived experience or enormous knowledge. And I was happy to do that because I knew that I was in safe hands.
Thank you, Johnny. You just reminded me of something as well that you talked a lot about in your interview, was around people's fear. Certainly people that you've worked with who are street homeless, living on industrial estates, and that fear of kind of coming forward and asking for help. And your passion really kind of shone through.
Yeah, there's that sort of disassociation that they have, that they are on the margins of society, that they have no place in society, and they feel perhaps like imposters if going into something that's seen as, you know, slightly mainstream or part of society. And I can understand that sort of paranoia or fear very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Johnny. Thank you for sharing your story. Thanks, John, for your input. I think you're an absolute inspiration in terms of where you were and where you're at now, and it ties in really nicely with National Volunteers Week. I say that in all genuineness because I started off many moons ago as a volunteer. I think it's a great way to get your foot in the door and learn new skills and do what you need to do. So I need to plug the service a little bit. So if anybody's out there who is interested in peer mentoring, volunteering, we've got loads of opportunities right across the service. I know John is going to be joining us soon at Burnley as well, supporting the team here. So if you're interested, check us out online, inspirelancs.org.uk, and get in touch with Mo, and he'll get the ball rolling for you. Thanks very much.